Hello. Come one, come all. Hello. 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 Hey guys. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. You over here. Sure Muller show up in time. In due time. Um let's see here. Get the personal stuff out of the way. Um my oldest daughter, apparently we've been taking care of her real good and everything, but she had like a mild pneumonia on her left lung, so she's gonna be cool because they got her on a Z pack now. But yeah, she was. It took me. It was so frustrating because I took her to urgent care, and then she wasn't doing too hot. She had a fever at the time, and that was like 10 days ago or something, or longer. But anyway, I took her to urgent care, and they like she was, yeah, she had this fever that had been going for like days, and and so we're like, oh, can you take a look at her? And they took a look at her, and then they're like, oh, okay, well, it looks like oh, maybe it's just like a throat thing or something like that, blah blah blah. And then they look, and her ears were like looked like they were infected, right? So she kind of had some kind of ear infection on like both her ears, and I was like, oh, okay, that sucks, but it's treatable. And so then they give us some like stuff, and then we came back like another time for the follow up, and they gave us other stuff, and then they gave us. I think at that point they gave us an antibiotic, the first one, and then after like 3 or 4 days of taking the antibiotic, we went back because she was like hacking up a lung, and they finally because I told them the second time before that I said, hey, can we get an X-ray? Because like, what if it's something else? And they did the whole checking the breathing and everything, and they said, oh well, we don't hear the sound like that would qualify or like would count toward getting an X-ray or whatever. And so the third time I brought her, I was like, I need an X-ray, like I need an X-ray. I want to see, and they did it. And even then the doctor was like, okay, we'll do it, but I don't think this and that. And they did it, and yeah, that like she had some kind of pneumonia action going on in her left lung, so she's gonna be fine. um, she's already doing a lot better. So that was stressful. Just getting this shit out of the way first, waiting for people to show up. So if you're not into this, then don't worry, it's not going to be the whole thing. Um, and then work's been weird as well. I work at like my job's as a like a technically independent contractor or whatever. What I do, and so like sometimes like stuff will happen and it'll be like, oh, you're not getting your 40 this week. It's like, what? Okay. So stuff like that can happen, and it can be pretty tough, but you make it work. Okay. Yep, 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 yep. Okay, I think that's all I really have to update those that might be interested in that kind of shit. Okay. Man. Oh, people left. Hilarious. I was just trying to kill time to save more people to join. People left and stuff. Amazing. Let's see here. I bet you a lot of it, like people won't click on it just because it says politics. Like all automatically, they're like, no, I'm not clicking on it. Oh, no, no, no. The title has politics. It has the word bad button. It has the scary, the spooky word of the things that are dumb and I hate, or something like that. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I wanted to get a little more meta than that. At least that was the hope. Let's just wait a little while. I mean, the usuals will probably stick around regardless, but yeah, kind of don't want to get started with like not at least like 5 or 6 people here. Seems like silly. Because then people show up and then they start asking questions about things I already said, and it's like, right. And then I'll forget what I said or what have you, or I don't know. I'd rather just have a few people here before I get rambling. Duck. I was gonna watch the election coverage, but meh, it will be what it will be. You can watch analysis later and learn more anyway. I like watching the coverage because of the mess it causes, and usually like the very expected mess, and just I like to see just media reactions of various things, and what the this what scandal or what have you we're gonna have on our hands that's gonna be talked about for the next 4 years. It can be pretty amusing. It's like watching the way I feel about watching election coverage is I think the same way other people feel when they watch like I don't know like my that like 1,000 Pound Sisters or something. I think that's like how I approach. That's how I approach watching election coverage. It's a big goof, and so like for me, it's like watching like 1,000 Pound Sisters or like watching Pawn Shop or whatever like trash television is currently popular. Like what is it, 16 Pregnant, Teen Mom, fucking all that shit. Like that's how I feel about election coverage. I watch it because it's like a train wreck. That's actually kind of interesting because it's like a crazy train wreck that actually has implications, usually negative. So it's I guess I think it's the what's the word? I don't really get Schadenfreude type stuff. Like that's not something really for me. I don't see videos of people like falling down or getting hurt and think it's like really funny or something, or people's careers getting destroyed and then being like, wow, it's so cool, because like even if they're like bad people, like I don't really get like a secondhand like enjoyment out of that, but I think I get a little bit out of that when it comes to stuff on a more like geopolitical scale or like big scale. I'll just be like, here we go again, and it's like pretty amusing in that sense. Yeah. And it shot up to 7. Now it's back down to 4. I was about to start rambling too. But yeah, I'm gonna be watching it like probably on my iPad while I game tonight, seeing what's being said and what have you. But I'm not really interested in like kind of want, like I said, I want to talk about something a little bigger than that. I would hope so, at least. We'll see. It might devolve into nothingness, like everything. All right, I'll get started now. There's like 6 people. Okay, welcome. It is Topical Tragedy Tuesday, in which I usually talk about whatever bullshit's in my head. Realized latterly, I just don't have real stakes in the game. Yeah, Eben G, nice, good comment. Absolutely. And so today I wanted to talk. Topical Tragedy Tuesday, where I just talk about whatever's in my head that week or I feel like talking about. And today I wanted to talk about the dreaded thing known as politics, right? And I'm not really interested in talking about like my perspectives on like policy or my perspectives on Supreme Court decisions or my perspectives on political history or anything like that. Like I'm not really that all that interested in like talking about like, oh, who did you vote for? Hanks? It's like I feel like for the sake of this conversation it's irrelevant. And it's just, I actually kind of consider it in many ways like a private matter, but whatever. Gotta have some stuff for yourself sometimes, even as somebody that does this kind of shit, I guess. But what I was interested in was talking about why a person, why a schizoid would feel like, just like Ibn G said there, that I just don't have any real stakes in the game, right? And personally, well, just growing up, I'm 40 years old now, so I've seen a lot of elections come and go, and I've been a part of a portion of them, to say the least, for since I've been able to, and I was never much. I was never like very excited about any candidate, presidential or otherwise, even if it was like city mayors and congressmen, anything like that. Even law changing would always be kind of like, I always felt like I was just throwing like leaves to the wind, and what my central like perspective, like what shapes my perspective when it came to a lot of the decision making, when it came to some of this stuff, was when I was younger, definitely in my 20s, early 20s especially, I was pretty like persuaded by, like, I probably would have been like totally more misanthropic, and I probably would have been more like of one of those like somebody that had kind of like accelerationist perspectives on stuff. Like that probably would have been me in my early 20s. Like it's just like, just want to watch the world burn because it's like useless and pointless and blah blah blah. That probably would have been like my attitude. And so I would have like been like, oh, this person seems like the worst person. I hope they get elected. Because I want things to devolve. But I don't believe that kind of stuff anymore, obviously. But even when I started getting more like seriously interested in political matters, I was always more interested in kind of like the conversations that people were having regarding political matters, more than political matters themselves. Um, the ethics, philosophy, the back and forth regarding like how one defines law and everything else. I always found that kind of interesting. But again, I just never felt very invested emotionally in much, and especially not in this. Uh, and so most of the time when I would tune in or watch, I was more curious about how people were reacting, how the public was behaving. I was always interested in advertisements for political candidates and how they were like posturing. It was always really interesting. I've always kind of had an eye for cynicism, an assumption that a lot of it's generally kind of functioning that way, this kind of cynical manner. And so everything from, George Bush Jr., some memories of Clinton stuff when I was really young, and, Obama, and everything and everyone always had these like slogans and these ideas and so on and so forth. But ultimately, I think I realized pretty early on that it was, to me, right, this is just my opinion, it was just kind of a dog and pony show, right? um and not because oh, it's a big they're all the same, it's a big conspiracy or anything. That might have been me in my early 20s as well, but or even part of my late 20s. But no, at this point in my life, I've kind of just come to believe that um this sort of stuff, these sort of like political concerns that people seem to get real riled up about, um, are just merely tools used by the individual interests of the individual people that are involving themselves in attaining these seats of power and position status. I I've kind of seen that it's literally no different than what people do on a social level. Um, it's no different than what would happen in a club, in uh, a small, like, even like anything that has any kind of like hierarchy of station, even on the most minor of levels, like a workplace, right? I don't really see things of this scale as anything more than essentially workplace politics and posturing, so on and so forth. It's just that it has a larger implication, right? Those decisions that would normally, say, if it were happening in the workplace, would like inconvenience some of the people there, or piss off some of the people there, or make somebody quit, or um, get somebody riled up because now they're not serving free coffee, at the workplace. It's essentially that, but like with far more grave consequences usually. But regardless of what the consequences are and what people claim them to be, um, in my mind, they're ultimately going to be feeding the same types of egomaniacal monsters in the world, right? And I think that's part of the reason I kind of said like oil and water, because it feels also gross to me, also disgusting. The entire process, what it pretends to be, what people claim it is, um, and what it actually is. And it's amusing because as someone that's neurodivergent, I just kind of see these like big games occurring, these big social games that involve, millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands, not millions of people that are actively interested and involved, tens of thousands actually influential, or people that directly work in these things. And it's just a really, really big workplace with higher and higher stakes. But ultimately, it makes just as much sense to me as the behaviors that I see, like a lot of neurotypical people kind of do and exhibit in everyday life. And just as it is kind of confusing and perplexing and frustrating, as oftentimes those things are, I have trouble seeing even stuff at this scale as being any more alienating or like kind of disappointing as someone in my local life making really poor decisions based on like knee-jerk reactions and based on like a lack of metacognition. So for me, a lot of like what is political, including this election, is essentially just a tribute to that lack of metacognition, an exaltation of it. And the way that people behave during this time, especially, that they do it all the time, is again a a representation, a diorama of almost celebrating this lack of metacognition as a virtue. It's when people lie to each other the most. It's when people lie to themselves the most. It's like waiting for the results of an STD test. That's actually, I'm thinking about that. That's sort of like, it's like waiting for the results of an STD test, but you know you have an STD. You just don't know which STD. Like there's something wrong with your junk. So you definitely have some kind of STD. But you're just taking the STD to test to see which one you got or which ones you've gotten. Like that's how the election feels to me. Because ultimately, even like, let's just say, even if ultimately the person who's chosen does something temporarily beneficial for the next 4 years, besides the fact that, there's the usual back and forth, people vetoing and legislation getting pulled back and pushed forward, pulled back, so on and so forth. Supreme Court cases that never happen, never make the light of day, real questions that never get asked. It's just, in my mind, oftentimes it also sort of adds up to nothing. And I'm not saying it to be like doomer, right? I'm saying it to be like, okay, well, if that's the case, then more people need to be talking about it like that. But instead, they're still talking about it within the confines of these incredibly limited parameters. It almost feels like your only options are to turn your eyes against the blistering red sun that is politics, or to stare at it and let it burn your retinas and say that there is no other choice but to look. It's the best sun we have to stare at. Like I've had people in previous years when I've decided, because there's been times where I've decided I'm going to vote. There's been times where I decide I'm not going to fucking vote. There's been times where I voted as a joke in the past. There's been times that I voted I guess in protest, and essentially threw away said vote. There's been times where I voted for something and it wasn't because I wanted to join in on a team sport. It was because I ultimately was more concerned about one particular result and how it's going to impact, um, you know, uh, social cohesion, things like that. Social cohesion is probably like one of the strongest determining factors to what I kind of vote for or care about, because ultimately, no matter what happens, generally, especially before I had my kids and everything, ultimately, whatever happens, it's probably not going to be anything I give a shit about in my life, in my family's life. It's ultimately going to be partially fulfilled or not fulfilled at all if it's something positive. And it's always going to be decision making not being made by obviously an interest in even things like societal cohesion or the reduction of unproductive suffering in the world. No, it's going to be more focused on the individual machinations and goals of not just the people on top, but also the people below them and the people below them. Whoever has the most to gain at any point in frame. And it's tiresome and it's boring. And I can see why a lot of schizoids would have like bailed on this kind of shit a long time ago. Not bothered even looking at election results or voting or doing any of that. I can't blame them for that. I think it's really silly to get mad at people for not voting. I think it's absurd. I also think it's absurd to get mad at people for voting. Man has not changed in the final analysis. There is nothing new under the sun. The public stands in great need of healthy counterbalance of historically grounded pessimism. Well, yeah, and that pessimism has been created by the amount of cynicism that exists in, this free world. We are free to tear each other's throats out, is what we are. And, I guess maybe it's cope, but all I can kind of do is just mock it, get a few gaffes in there. But it's all very, very sad. GatorDog44, I voted for Harris just because I want Trump to disappear. So tired of seeing him on the news constantly. You're probably still going to see him. That is kind of amusing because in the last 4 years with Biden as president, you just didn't see that much of him compared to when Trump was president. But I could give two shits because I don't really watch like regular news anyway. I haven't for years. I read articles. I compare them, do bullshit like that. Because I like propaganda. Not like I like it, but it's interesting to me. How prop works, how it's used, why it's used. In this day and age, it's mostly just used for corporate monetary gains, financial gains of corporate entities and stockholders and such. That's more influential than anything. So I would go ahead and assume that most schizoids do not vote. And I would not look down on them for that. I wouldn't look up or down. It just depends on how you want to cope with the seemingly unchangeable situation. It's just so slow. It's so slow. Imagine being like a schizoid, right? That just doesn't give a shit about what people always got so wrapped up in, whether it's the current time period or in previous ones. Like, let's just imagine you're a schizoid during a civil rights era, and you see all these like things and activism and racial equality and all this sort of stuff, right? And then you see the progress that's being made, right? I still feel like it would be frustrating because like if you're disconnected, right, from a lot of these like tribal mechanisms, and you're pretty disconnected from things like race, nationality, and so on and so forth. There would have been times in history where being disconnected from those things and vocalizing that would be a problem. Now you can be disconnected from those things and vocalize it. Nobody cares. And if anything, people call you like a fence sitter or something for that kind of stuff. But imagine, like, yeah, so and then you're sitting there like, oh, they're just like, people are just deciding that, like, the government is just deciding that, like, black people are human. Wow, it took this long? Or, women having the right to vote, it took this long? Wait, what? Didn't we already have that? Oh, yeah. Okay, no? I figured as much. Gay rights, whatever. It took this long? All this sort of stuff. It was kind of amusing because I was a kid that grew up on a lot of science fiction, Star Trek included, original, Next Generation, all that kind of stuff. And I would watch, like, there's problems in that society, to say the least, but I would watch the sort of indifference there was to a lot of things. And just because they were supposed to be this, like, super post-scarcity, super whatever society in the future, in the distant future, and so now they're, like, super open and don't, like, they're so forward thinking and blah blah blah. And it was just really funny to me because I would just be like, do we need spaceships to do this? Like, do we need spaceships to, like, stop caring about all this stupid shit all the time? Like, do we need spaceships to find middle grounds and mutual understanding? Shadows here. I have very little to say anything to do with politics. Too busy with other stuff. I accept that it's just not my thing. Yeah. Yeah, that's respect. And what is the answer? Not to be deluded by dreams, to know what great civilizations have broken down into violence and their tyrants come many times before. Robin Jeffers found yesterday. I don't know if that is much of an answer. Only because, like, how... I think the answer, and it's like an impossible dream, right? I think the answer to a lot of this stuff is the integration of all forms of sort of human difference, particularly the neurological, and the ability to somehow enrich society with even if it's an educated or a learned form of metacognition. It's crazy. It's crazy that's not already, like, a thing. That blows my mind. And the fact that I live in that kind of world is just very disheartening. And I'm doing whatever I can on my little space to advocate and talk about some of that, included with everything else. But it's just this problem. Like, I see a major problem, and it's just never. We're just going to keep going round and round and round and round, and we're not looking at the source. We're not looking at the beginning, because we've accepted whatever this is, and that will remain unchanged. It feels like learned helplessness on a national level, and even on the level of, like, the very people who have the ability to actually make changes or have that level of power and influence, they're also running under the assumption that this is like an immovable object. running under the assumption, the belief of the trappings of human nature, as people call it. The human nature. It's human nature. Well, it wouldn't be human nature if we included all human minds, right? Human nature can be shaped and folded, changed. Human nature is not some constant that can't be changed or altered or done anything about. It isn't a universal constant. The human brain has so much going for it that it can just about go in any direction. If you normalize things like higher levels of metacognition, I mean, if you normalize that, you're going to be sitting pretty. Maybe it'll take a few hundred years, but nonetheless. But there's too much to gain. There's too much to game and gain. And making sure that's something that never occurs. I don't consider myself some kind of fucking like saint of a person. I just don't understand why we like to play shitty games and win shitty prizes. I guess that's one way to put it. I don't understand why that's the status quo, why that's normal. Well, I actually do understand, but it's hard to swallow. And it's hard to say. Because then people take it like really weird and wrong. I honestly think it has a lot to do with just this non-compliance on the part of, I guess, what would be more or less in comparison called the neurotypical world. That just don't. There's no compliance when it comes to understanding how to integrate the outliers of the human experience and cognition. That they might have perspectives and ideas that although on their own might not be very useful, but if integrated, could change so much. I don't think voting is me trying to be the change I want to be. I think it requires a lot more than punching a hole in a ballot. Choose your pre-picked combo option. It's so fucking odd to me. Why don't we just mod the game? We need a council on neurodivergent perspective for sure. Would at least be helpful. Good point. Just have some like competent, intelligent, diagnosed, autists, and you got some fucking, if they ever recognize the value of people that I guess what I consider the other side, more abstract thinkers, that schizo spectrum, more meta concern, abstract thought type person. You get those types of people, both those extremes of what the human mind is capable of doing, and then you integrate that into the majority. And not because, we need our voices heard. No, it's because it just makes fucking sense. Why would you limit the decision making on a global scale to the medium of the human experience and cognitive experience? Why would you choose the medium to make major decisions? Why wouldn't you attempt to get information from these other parts of essentially the way a human being can and will interact and perceive reality. Like, why the fuck would you not do that? I mean, I could come up with like a bunch of reasons as to why. I mean, open up a sociology book, psych book, come with a. I mean, it's kind of funny. If you like, if you read all your psych literature and you read your sociological literature, you study it vehemently and really like into it, and whatever. In a weird way, you're not really learning about humanity. You're learning about the majority. That's what I find interesting. And big number make more important, apparently, which is fucking absurd. Like if political entities and governmental entities, state national entities, are already going to make decisions, they're absolute shit and piss people off and cause a lot of damage. Why not make decisions that piss people off and cause a lot less damage, and ultimately have long-term benefits? That's the part that's confusing to me. Everyone's going to be feeling like shit and upset. So making decisions based on the medium, human experience, and human cognition, it's not working. It hasn't worked. You know how many like schizos and autists and just schizoids that are schizos and autists I've talked to that like have just amazing ideas, like great fucking ideas. We're talking everything from like STEM to like yeah, cultural, social, political, even spirituality. Yeah, no, for real. You actually beat you actually beat me to it, Gator Dog. That's it. That's where my line of thinking was like slowly going. It's like we like as a neurodivergent person, we might as well just have AI for president. I want an AI for president. I want an AI to run everything because it won't change anything for me. I doubt it'll make it worse or more difficult. I just don't understand the argument we would have for, as someone that's neurodivergent, my perspectives, I don't understand how having an AI for president would be worse than the piles of fucking shit that we get served on the plate every 4 years in the United States or anywhere, really anywhere. You got corruption on every level. It doesn't fucking matter. Why not just AI? Fuck it. What's your argument? How's it going to be worse? Even if it ultimately eradicates our species. No, it would still be biased, but you would have to basically give it everything. Because whoever is like training it, it would have to be an untrained type thing. It would have to be a thing that just kind of makes decisions of its own, and we're not at that point. An untrained AI. Like imagine like an AI taking over the facet of so many things. What would it like? What if it ultimately, just goes, okay, let's get you like the goal would be like, hey, let's get all humans off this fucking planet. Let it be turned into like a reservation, and let's go fucking live on. Let's go terraform some shit. I'll be long fucking my kids will be long dead before any of that happens, even if it got started. But maybe not the grandkids, you know. The point is, I just, that's so crazy to me that the goals, the goals were never actually progress. It's like humanity's been like feigning an interest in progress for millennia. Technological progress and so on. Yeah, with these thoughts in mind, I absolutely understand why something like politics is just fucking disgusting. I have my absurdist takes of that stuff, so I find it all amusing. Because I have to. The way I cope with how horrific the way nations conduct themselves and the people in power conduct themselves is by laughing and mocking and just looking at like things come out, and I'm like, that's yeah. If you're not, what is it? If you're not laughing, you're crying. I guess. I guess that's my take when it comes to that stuff. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys feel the same. I mean, I doubt, I really doubt there's a lot of schizoids out there that have like this, like, oh yeah, I'm like very, like if you're living in the US, I'm like, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm a this, I'm a that. Like very, ideologically driven. I doubt there's that many. It would be a function perfectly for the mids, more tragic, possibly for the outsider. Yeah, that's kind of the problem, right? If you had AI, it would have to be like AI that's like not running under the what's best for the average human, but what's best for humans, which might not be so good if it decides to, like, I don't know, one day it goes, oh, time to de-escalate, you know, reproductive capacity until, you know, this project 100 years from now is done, and it starts sterilizing like parts of the population just because it wants to control the numbers for specific reasons. Like, I don't know. Yeah, that's the only problem with that's the only scary part about that stuff. It would have to be an AI that just has what it thinks is most efficient and doable in mind, which could ultimately end up really bad. But if it's an AI that's like, this decision making is what's best for the majority of humans, like, ugh, it's just gonna be more neurotypical Disneyland. Man, I wish we could just get rid of this idea of big number equal better. So crazy. Ideas judged by number of consensus. Fucking crazy. Not like, not sitting down and reasoning things out and seeing what information works and doesn't. Getting different people that are, you know, specialized or competent in specific fields and ideas, and then comparing notes and, you know, and making judgments like that. No, let's base it on consensus. It's the most insane shit. Like, let's base it on how most people feel about something. Oh man. The current AI configuration is any indicator. No, it's heinously stupid every time I've engaged with it. Oh yeah. Well, that's my job. I engage with AI like every day. So um within the herd. There's way too many humans. I disagree. I disagree only because it's not that there's way too many humans. It's just that the planet we possess is being like horribly misused, even like when it comes to like efficiency, in order to like keep humans alive and populations alive and things like that's a whole different thing. But yeah, that's like, did my like stream go down or something? Because it went from like 6 or 7 people to like two. Was it my take? Was it my take on AI? Yeah. I'm not even the kind of person that's like AI will make all the right decisions and all it'll be amazing and singularity and all that kind of. I'm not really that kind of like transhumanist. Like that's not really like my deal. 100%. Some stuff's good. Some stuff's good about it, but I just don't see how it would be that much worse. No, the AI would come to that conclusion. Oh, it might not actually. A lot of people say that, but I don't think so. I don't think if you set in its parameters like the sustainment of life in various species on the planet and the reduction of suffering that ultimately leads to more death and more unneeded and unproductive suffering. Like if it was like obviously more way more complex than that, like I don't think it would come to that conclusion. It would probably try to figure out how to make the population that's available work and then how to like if it's complex enough, it would be like what kind of choices society and the governments and everything humans need to make in order to like keep up birth rates but not blow them up, and also how to like consolidate the land and the available resources in like the most efficient ways. Like if it was kind of being broken down to that, you're having a different story. It doesn't need to get rid of just like, oh, there's not enough resources, kill a bunch of humans. Like I don't. Yeah, it's just so fucking silly. I know it's cliche and boring, but Wally humbled any chance I have of finding a right rule set for. Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine with. I honestly, I'd be 100% all for the Wally universe. I'm down for the Wally universe, 100%. I don't care. I feel like the only thing would be the Wally universe, and you can make the choice of whether you want to be like a fucking tub of lard floating in a chair, or if you want to live like outside of that shit, or you want to just kind of be in it when you want to be and not in it when you don't want to be, right? Like that would be ideal. Hold on. Yeah, I just maybe I've just read too much science fiction or something. I don't think so. Like it's funny when like I've read like science fiction stories with interesting concepts, and I'm like, why haven't we made that? Or why haven't we like established that? Like, why is that such a like such? Why is the science fiction? Like, why aren't we working towards some of these ideas? It's fucking bananas. What I find really amusing is I think that neurodivergent people, like I think that the schizos and autists of the world would be absolutely totally fine with like the idea. Not all of them obviously, but the idea of like majority does not rule. And I'm not even talking like a technocracy. but more like majority influences, but it does not rule. It's an important part of the decision-making process. That's why this entire, like, goddamn, the voting system in most countries, United States included, is just so fucking bananas. Like a electoral college and all that sort of stuff. It there's so many arguments for why it's fucking busted, and the only answer people give is like, well, it's the best, it's the best we've got, it's the best we've got to work with, it's the best we've got. Is that the attitude that it's useful? Is that attitude useful? It's so weird. They bank on that attitude too. They bank on that. That's that kind of learned helplessness that I'm talking about. And I'm voicing all this stuff because I really don't think. I mean, based on my experiences with a lot of the schizoids and stuff I talk to, a lot of them like have these sentiments of just like, this is why I don't. This is why I don't take part in society. This is why I don't care. This is why I'm just dejected and disappointed by all this. They'll have their ideas about like specific things, unique things, special interests, about the importance of those things, how they ultimately, if that was worked on and done, it would be one step toward, improvements of a realistic but doable kind. But no. So I guess part of the point, I know it sounds stupid or whatever, but I guess part of the point of what I'm saying, for me, it feels like voting is kind of like a, if you're neurodivergent and you vote, no matter who you vote for, you're throwing away your vote. All vote, like, I feel like my vote is thrown away regardless of who I'm voting for. Because what I would vote for will never be on the ballot. I think that's kind of my point, partially. As a schizoid, as a neurodivergent person, it just feels like every vote is a wasted vote. That's my feeling. Will I still vote? Yeah. Why? Because sometimes because it's funny. I like grim shit, I guess. I just like taking part in something that's harmless. I mean, it's not harmless, but you know what I mean? That is not like actively trying to hurt people. But it's just kind of like, it's just something that people do. I see like voting in every election similar to celebrating Easter. Just some like tradition that people do. It's something that kind of adds to some element of social cohesion, right? Like people feel like they have this, like the average person may feel like they have like this like influence over things. And that's positive. That could be positive. So I would say to the average person, keep voting. Keep voting. Keep believing in it. I don't, but you should. Because it's good for social cohesion. Now, would there be other choices that I think would be preferable besides just voting every year and thinking you're making a difference? Like vocalizing those concerns, those thoughts, making sure that whatever concerns and thoughts you vocalize regarding, ideological matters and so on aren't just being fueled by your relationships and your proximity to other people and what your friends think and what your husband or wife thinks or what mom and dad did or what feels right. You know, there are matters. There are matters of emotion. I respect them and I have them myself. There are matters that are dictated and decided by emotion, and I think they should be. I am not of the type that, oh, it's all logic and reason. No, no. That's part of what it is to be human. But I also believe there are matters in which there is no place to make it your primary, like, decision making fuel source. And one of those is shit that's on a statewide, national wide, global scale. That's fucking bananas to me. That's crazy. The same mechanisms that make you decide who you want to be friends with should not fucking be what makes you decide things of this much consequence. That's so fucking disgusting. Like, it makes me sick to my fucking stomach. Yeah, it's funny because like, I would say in like my I would say my early 20s more specifically, but my mid early 20s, I legitimately used to believe that it was important to take part in these things within, you know, the political structure that currently exists, because I thought there were actual people in those higher positions that were doing it for those reasons that made sense to me and concerns that made sense to me. It took me years to figure out, oh wait, my concerns are irrelevant because they're idiosyncratic, because they're unconventional, because they're too radical to think that trying to find like a middle ground solutions to ridiculous problems, contextual solutions to problems is radical. And yes, it is disappointing. It is like disheartening. People could still form intentional communities if that's any consolation. More people did and just elected to drop out of a mass configuration. That could be a good start. That's interesting. That's interesting. A two-party system. Can you imagine how narrow it makes everything? And then I think about um, like the third parties, like, you know, third party options, other, as it's shown in the, you know, the polls and stuff, other. Like, all I think about, like, with those people, like, I don't know. I'm sure there's like a handful of people that run under that as like essentially it's just a protest, which I can respect. It's just essentially like, you know, a protest of some kind because they know it's futile. Because there's fundamental problems that need to be worked on before human beings actually vote for things that are in their best interest and not for who makes them feel uncomfortable or happy or who they've been told is this or that or who TikTok or Facebook or Twitter said and what their friends said. Like, oh, God, Lord Almighty. So flabbergasted. So yeah, if you're not interested in me talking about it, if you're not interested in watching it or care about who's elected or don't give a shit about so much of this stuff, I cannot judge you. But I am a fool because I am a hopeless fool because I am interested and I do follow it and I will continue to like a fool. And I legitimately hope that people out there disagree with me and have solutions and will actively work on them, not pay attention to my disappointed, discouraged rhetoric. I'll gladly work with like an optimistic person toward the same goals, and I'll gladly work just as hard as they will. I'm just kind of resigned to believe that nothing will change, but I still want to do something to cope with that by at least going, well, I did something, I guess. I tried to say something, at least in this arena, within psych stuff or whatever. And then just like I just like that's kind of like the way it feels for me. It's kind of like I've been like listening to a lot of Warhammer audiobooks, and it's like those like last charges, or for the weebs out there, like well, I'm also one. It's like that kind of just the charge with what was it? Oh my god, I'm so bad with names. An Attack on Titan, the horse charge with you're just going toward fuck my god, I can't believe I forgot his name because he was my favorite character. Um, I can tell I'm tired, but just that kind of like we will die without fear in the Emperor's name. Like they're just like fucking charging toward like inevitable defeat because they're just like backed into a corner. So their only option is to like hunker down and eventually get just killed like rats in a cave, or just fucking fuck it, YOLO. That's kind of how like I see like a lot of this stuff. I just fuck it. I'm gonna fight where I can, how I can. Although I ultimately believe I'm going to be, you know, torn apart by gunfire. Not metaphorically speaking. I hope. But that's how I feel about like this stuff. It's just charge. That's why I'm so dumb. Like, how much more beneficial it would be to me. Like, think about it this way. Think about it this way. Okay. You know how much more, like, if it was just about me, right? And I wasn't such a fucking schizo about this shit. How much more beneficial it would be to me to just be like, hey, I figured out how to like, because I've overcome a lot of my schizoid stuff, and it's really helping with anhedonia and like all sorts of shit, right? If I just went like, oh, fuck all these people. I got my shit. I'm fixing my shit. Who the fuck cares? Not my problem. Not my fucking war to fight. Not my battle. Not my hill to die on. That's crazy. I can't even imagine doing that. But then, like, I wonder, like, am I an idiot? No. Actually, yes. Yes, I am an idiot. And I will gladly die an idiot. I think that's a better way to put it. I am an idiot. And I kind of like it. Is he stupid? Yes. Yes, I am. And I'm happy about it. I'm glad I'm stupid. Because if this is what it means to be stupid, then by all means, call me stupid. But yeah, I could just take my knowledge and my overcoming and figuring this stuff out and just be like, well, I figured it out for me. Fuck everybody. I'm not gonna fucking fight for academics to pay attention. I'm not gonna fight for other schizoids to try some of these thoughts or, you know, try to mentor some people. Why am I gonna do that? It doesn't make me money. It doesn't let me gather resources. I don't even care about accolades. So I don't even get like status rewards amongst like my own little community. People like, like, what the fuck? I think I'm just stupid. I think more people need to be stupid in this kind of way. They need to just be stupid. When it comes, like, we're like human beings are already fucking stupid as it is in a variety of ways, including myself. But can we be like a more productive kind of stupid? That'd be good. I think I would like that. A more productive stupidity. I think what would be healthy would be for humanity to take up not necessarily like my style of sort of optimistic or productive nihilism, but like just absurdism, like an overall absurdism. Like it would be pretty cool. Like if that became like the normal. It's like, oh, you want to worship, Jehovah or Quetzalcoatl or Thor? Sure. Who the fuck cares? People acting like they can answer existential questions, metaphysical questions, like they have answers to that. The hubris. The only questions I have and the only solutions I care about are those that increase human metacognitive capacity and reduce unproductive human suffering. That is it. Not all human suffering. Some human suffering is very much needed and required. We wouldn't be human beings if we did not have any hardships, any obstacles. I don't wish that future. Suffering is a very important component. And there will always be that because of the indifference of the universe. It would always make us suffer. And that's good. But us just killing ourselves nonstop, that's wild. That's just. It's funny, had I the money and the spoons, as people say, if I had like both the money and the will and the energy, like I think I know somebody's gonna laugh at me for this, but I legitimately think I would probably go at least vegetarian, if not vegan. But my psychology is just it's too much. I can't stack that. I can't stack that war in my head. It's not my war. I can't do it. I respect those that have that war and they're doing it civilly and properly, and creating businesses and everything else to try to do everything they can to remove those seemingly impossible giants. I like that too. It's funny. I don't even think veganism and living on the planet is enough. I think we just got to GTFO off the planet. Like seriously, figure out how to like have a planet where it's just humans, and maybe domesticated animals that won't survive on Earth without us, like species. Just get all the domesticated species to some degree that isn't like for eating, just for comfort and just having like, it's also good for metacognition to have animal life in your life. because it makes you think outside of your human perspective all the time, if possible. Some people are really bad at that, and they treat their pets like shit. They treat them as extensions of themselves, which is fucking hideous. But but yeah, yeah. I just can't. I can't. I'm not at that point because I do keto, and it's the only thing keeping me from like getting like super fat like I used to be. Like I'm already fat, but I was way fucking fatter and way more unhealthy. And man, like I just can't. I can't. I've tried some of those options, man. I just can't. Like I can't stack intolerable food to my plate of intolerable shit that I have to fucking deal with and think about. Like there's just no way I can't do it until they make it tolerable. I swear to God, I hope those vegetarians out there make some bomb. I want some bomb ass like vegetable burgers and shit. Like I want some good shit that tastes just like fucking it, just as delicious as like properly cooked salt baked ground beef patty. Please, for the love of God, some genius out there make that shit happen. Promote it, make it blow up. I will gladly replace my food. Metacognition, in some ways it's higher order thinking, but it's also kind of this ability to step outside of your individual human experience and beyond that, the experiences of your tribe, of your people, of your group. A lot of human beings are pretty okay at doing that. That part, no, sorry, the individual part, like they generally are, because otherwise you end up being like a psychopath, because then it's just like you're just all about you and you exclusively, nothing but you. Then yeah, you end up being kind of a psychopath. But most humans, they can think outside of themselves and be like, my family, my city, my race, my people, right? And then some can go further and be like, my, nation. Then beyond that, my planet, my species. And then there's people that can go beyond that. And it's like, not just my species. And they go past, kind of what is it? Uh, um, Human centered sort of perspective. And they go past that, right? It's like, oh, well, all life, right? And it's just not, that's not being taught anywhere. Even like religion is so fucking narrow in its metacognitive capacity because it's still very much narrow, depending especially on what you're talking about. Especially when the goal is to like bring them into your flock or make them one of you. Like that's not metacognitive at all. Yeah, and it's like a skill set that's just not that I think a lot of neurodivergent, now tons of schizoids are super good at. Super good at. I think that's why a lot of schizoids and a lot of neurodivergent people in general are really like respectful and conscientious of things like animals and just sort of suffering in general. Like on that cognitive sort of empathy level, I think that's part of the reason there's such a high cognitive empathy because of like that ability to expand outside of just me and what I feel and how I feel all the time. And what my neighbor feels and what my romantic partner feels and what they think or whatever. That's I've never been able to think like that very well. I've had to force myself to think that way to manage relationships in the past. So I'm struggling to figure out if I'm schizoid or schizotypal. I'm leaning towards the latter because I spent near all my time with non-human nature. This is what I talk about, even G. I'm not sure if I've seen you here before. This is like my perspective, is that you have the autists, which are highly concrete, and then you have what some people would call schizotypals, or people like that are usually more referential thinking, loose associative thinking. Um, Sometimes that could become magical thinking, but it doesn't have to become magical thinking. Um, I think magical thinking essentially is when you start putting no brakes on it, but being like loose associative and kind of having sort of referential thinking, not believing, but thinking, not making it all 100% salient all the time, because that's part of the problem too. I think I think that's what a lot of I feel like a lot of schizotypal people are people that like on that kind of brink between um allowing their kind of intuitive form of thinking to just completely encompass them. Yeah. It's kind of like if an autistic person was like what they think is right and wrong and they just stuck to that and did nothing else, like it would probably ultimately end up really bad for them if they didn't evolve or adapt anything. And I feel like a lot of schizotypal people are kind of like schizospectrum people that just like either to cope with the horrible nature of reality or otherwise they just went, I'm leaving all this other stuff behind. I'm going full hog over here. It's not like a conscious decision, but it's not. I imagine the God speaking to me, but I do not say it is objectively real. Oh, yeah, that's fine. You can imagine whatever you want. In fact, it can be incredibly useful. Occasional suffer psychosis under stress. Yeah, that's. You know what's funny is dude. Anybody can suffer psychosis under stress, depending on the stress. So it's funny. It's just that neurodivergent people, they're just more prone to stress and levels of stress that could probably lead to psychosis because like everything sucks all the time for them and they're always anxious and sad and scared and confused and just stressed all the fucking time. Of course we're going to be more higher propensity for psychosis. Are you kidding me? Jesus Christ. Why wouldn't be? Imagine living like a. If you got any human, you're like you're gonna live on this planet with other humans, and they're all gonna be like they're not gonna make sense to you a lot of the time. But you're just gonna have to live with that, and you're gonna have to live with these rules and just live this way. Like that's gonna drive like a lot of people kind of like after like a few decades of that shit. And when you say psychosis, I'm talking more along the lines of um less about hallucination, but more about delusion. Hallucination, I think, is a whole different thing. I think that's the phrenia and schizophrenia. I think that's a different thing going on. I think that hallucination and whatever neurological issues are happening with those individuals, um, I think that hallucinations can lend themselves to delusions very easily, as they're being essentially partially manufactured by it. Like so, but yeah, that's why it's kind of weird when people say psychosis. It's like, okay, that usually just referring to positive symptoms like hallucination, like delusion. But I think those are very different. I think they're coming from very different parts of the human brain. Because there's people that are schizophrenic and not delusional, and there are people that are delusional. Well, sorry, not schizophrenic. There are people who are delusional and don't hallucinate, and there are people who hallucinate that aren't that delusional. They're scared, they're anxious, they're aware that the shit ain't real, but it's hard to distinguish when it's right in front of you, type of shit. Delusions and paranoia, yeah, yeah. That's why neurodivergent people are just prone to that shit. It's easier for them when everything feels like fucking hostile and just confusing and just like frustrating and just goddamn. I don't think neurodivergent people should just be tolerated and accepted. I think their type of thinking needs to be like integrated into like both small and large scale decision making. It's just weird that it's not. Because like if you know if I were the ruler of the world, I wouldn't be like, ah yes, only autists or only schizos, they have the right way to think and manage the world. It's like, what? No, it's fucking dumb. It's funny too that I feel like if like I feel like that the if I feel like that if the neurotypical world were to put their hand out and be like, work with me, there would be two types of neurodivergence. There'd be the ones that are like, fucking finally. And then there'd be the ones that are like, what are you going to do to me? What are you going to do to me? Like, that's going to be like the two reactions. It's never going to be like, when they look away, I'll set in motion my plans. Like, to feed my own power. You know, just like I do not see that. I don't see that being the thing. So weird. Even like in Warhammer stuff, I get so annoyed. Like when I'm reading or I'm listening to stories of like some big fucking thing that's happening, and there's just like three dumb fucks that like make some decision that absolutely shit everything up. And I'm like, ah, man, come on. Or some misunderstanding. Dude, it's so crazy. Okay, I gotta go because the stream's over. But one of the most like favorite, most fascinating things about Warhammer 40K to me is that the consequence of misunderstanding and miscommunication is so fucking tragic and crazy in that universe. Like it's just like literally like large scale cosmic levels, galactic levels of like misunderstanding and miscommunication. And a lot of it doesn't even have to do with like a choice that was made. It's just circumstances. That whole indifference of the universe. Good point. No desire to scramble to the top of an ant heap. That being said, psychopaths are also neurodivergent. Yeah, but that's why it's hard. There's no fucking word. I'll just spectrum people. I don't know. Yeah, I know, I know. That's why I've always had that joke, Eben G, that like, well, I haven't always had it, but it's a joke I've mentioned or idea that I think is funny, not joke, is that like the world actually might be ruled by neurodivergent people. They're just psychopaths. They're that kind of neurodivergent. Like the world is ruled by psychopaths and they're neurodivergent. But like we're the neurodivergence that like autists and schizos are the neurodivergent that they would see the most threatening. Like it's kind of funny, like really quick, but I've talked about this too when it comes to like somebody that is like that manipulative and individualized and basically like just you know I'm not talking about like pro-social psychopaths because there are pro-social ones, right? There's pro-social psychopaths. There's a whole thing, but if we're talking more like anti-social psychopaths and things like that, um but like what I think is funny is that like if like an antisocial psychopath was like I'm going to study everything about human psychology, sociology, and human behavior so that I can control and manipulate everyone around me, right, some fucking shit like that, they could probably do it really well. And they, especially if they're like, you know, high IQ, smart person, whatever, they probably do it really well. And they probably could. And they'd probably be pretty efficient at it. But what I find amusing is no matter how much literature they intake, about the human mind. When they come across a neurodivergent person like an autist or some schizo of like equal intelligence as them, they're gonna have some fucking problems because all that shit they read isn't gonna be very applicable. All that stuff they learned on how to like finagle people based on like all that stuff. There's just not enough literature out there for them to even be able to read that would let them do much. Never learned the great lessons of, say, Greek tragedy. Oh god, that's amazing lessons there. But yeah, I just find that really funny. That's why like people that are like malevolent, not all narcissists, but like more malevolent narcissists, like that's why they have trouble with neurodivergent people too. They've had trouble with me, that's for sure. The psychopaths do not like me very much. Yeah, of course not. Narcissists, malevolent narcissists would not like you very much either. Because their tactics to manipulate, control, um, or just that kind of stuff. Those kinds of tactics that work, even charisma, even like cynical use of charisma is just what? I don't care. You know how many times I've had in my life somebody try to cynically use their charisma against me? Like they're doing charisma rolls, right? They're hitting D20s. They're like crit, crit, and I'm just like, I'm immune to charisma. I like charisma for entertainment purposes. So if somebody's charismatic, like say on a YouTube channel, that's fun for entertainment purposes. Does that like control how I decide what kind of person they are and if I trust them or would want to like converse with them for extended periods of time personally? No, not at all. Charisma is for entertainment purposes only. Um, I cannot. I've had people like be like, whether it's like rizzing or like whatever fucking people. I'm just like, I'm immune to that shit. And I think a lot of neurodivergent people. I think plenty. I think every schizoid, like legitimate schizoids, pretty fucking immune to that shit. Like they could play along, but I think they just kind of like, yeah. It's like that meme, that guy that goes like, "How are things?" and this shows like a bunch of horrible shit, and then it goes, "That's good," or "That's nice," or whatever it is. That panel, can't remember right now. Anyway, guys, all right. Thanks for being here. Sorry if this was boring. It went from me trying to talk about something to me just rambling as usual. That's kind of what Tuesdays are. Tomorrow I'm going to be uploading, or I'm going to be asking the Schizoid question of the week for Saturday, Schizoid Saturday, and whatever. Just realize, guys, whether it's check out the interviews, by the way, the interviews. If you haven't watched the 2 Schizoid interviews I have up, the Schizoid Quest, check them out. They're cool. I have another one in line for later this week to put out. And if anybody's interested, be interviewed by me about mostly kind of just interview various questions and stuff. Hit me up, Discord, whatever, and especially if you're schizoid. And I'm more interested in speaking to 2 types of people. People that are diagnosed and people that aren't diagnosed but have done their due diligence, and this is something they've kind of like come to terms with over the course of a certain length of time. Like they've done their work. Because I'm not all about like diagnosis or bust. Like, no. So, but if you're one of those 2 types of people that really did their fucking homework and just don't have a diagnosis, sometimes you can't even get a diagnosis because of like geographic or economic like barriers. So it's fucking dumb. But in any case, yeah, if you're the person who did their homework and whatever, or you're a person that got diagnosed and you want to be interviewed by me, and then you're cool with the video going up, I don't you don't you can I don't care how we do it. Like, you can no face, you can use a voice changer. I do not care. However you want to do it. Um is just fine with me. No real names. You can make a fucking burner account on Discord or on Zoom, because it would have to be on Zoom. You can make like a burner account. Like, give me some like fake username that you don't even use actually, or something. Just I would want to talk to you a little bit back and forth before I make the decision of like, okay, we're gonna go through this interview. But and if any of the regulars out there that I talk to all the time or just been around on the server forever are interested, yeah, hit me up. All right. Other thing too, remember, this is not a money making venture, guys. I don't do this because I make buco bucks, but any Patreon help is always useful. PayPal, it's kind of listed in there. And if you want some like one-on-one time with me, like to talk about your shit, your fucking schizoid issues, your schizoid dilemmas, and, maybe you want some mentoring, a little advice, coaching, life coaching, because that's all I can be. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a licensed therapist. No, no, no. Yeah, hit me up. I don't charge a crazy amount, at least compared to like fucking life coaches out there. That's crazy. I've seen the numbers. It's like, life coach, 5 sessions, $600, $800, like for 4 sessions with me. It's like, what the fuck? So, yeah, this is not a money making venture, and I know a lot of Zoids out there aren't exactly like rolling in dough. So, and if you are rolling in dough, send some of it to me. All right, peace out, guys. And as usual, when day is dark, always remember, happy day.